Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Attorney barred from speaking with illegal Haitian migrants cries foul. Private wing being touted for Cornwall Regional Hospital. And later in sports, nominees announced for RGR Cleaner Sports Foundation National Awards. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. There could be possible legal challenges for the government arising from the barring of human rights lawyer with Freedom Imaginaries Melanie Alain from having dialogue with the recent Haitian migrants that landed in Jamaica on the weekend. Ms. Alain says despite numerous efforts, she was told by police officers to leave the premises where the migrants were screened and housed. Kimon Witter reports.
Over the past few months, at least 3 sets of Haitian migrants have landed on the shores of Jamaica via Portland. But the latest arrival on Sunday could be spelling trouble for the Jamaican government. According to attorney-at-law with Freedom Imaginaries, Melanie Alain, her efforts to speak with the Haitians were denied on 2 occasions by members of the security forces on Tuesday. It's why she's calling on the government to explain what's the justification behind persons in Jamaica being denied access to an attorney.
From my point of view, there's no basis in law, whether the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms in Jamaica or international law, to deny Haitian migrants at least the very basic right of access to legal assistance and information on their rights, and of course, access to a procedure for the individualized assessment of their international protection needs under the Refugee Convention.
As for the treatment, she says it is unfair for a democratic society like Jamaica.
In countries across the world, of course, the processes aren't perfect. In fact, they're quite imperfect. And there are many gaps and many weaknesses and a lot that needs to be done, especially for racialized migrants such as Haitians. And you see a lot of xenophobia, racism, anti-blackness in countries across the world. It's just that even in those cases, there are certain basic rights that are observed, like the right to a lawyer, for example.
She's hoping that the government will be a front runner in how it deals with these cases.
We come from a history, of people standing up for freedom and standing up for marginalized people and standing up boldly for what is right. Jamaica should be the last country treating Haitians in this way. And so I see this as an opportunity for the government of Jamaica to set a precedent for the region and for the American hemisphere in general about what it means to treat Haitians and other vulnerable communities fleeing persecution with dignity.
On Tuesday, the police told us that they have captured 9 of the Haitians who arrived on the island on Sunday night. It's still unclear how many Haitians arrived on the boat, which was abandoned at the Long Bay Beach in the parish. Haitians have been fleeing their country due to gang warfare and economic hardships following the assassination of their president, Jovenel Moise, on July 7, 2021. Kimon Witter reporting for TVJ News.
In the meantime, Ms. Elaine says yesterday she filed for asylum for the Haitians that were intercepted by the police between Monday evening and Tuesday.
I haven't received a response yet. I will continue to follow up with the government on the request because I think they have an obligation to respond to it and they have an obligation to ensure that the Haitians have access to an effective procedure governed by due process.
In relation to the group of 37 Haitians for which Freedom Imaginaries is seeking asylum, she says they remain in limbo. The application, which was acknowledged by the government, has been going through the process since July. Ms. Elaine has expressed concern about the welfare of the Haitians, especially the children. The government is looking at the possibility of opening a private wing at the Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton gave the clearest indication on Tuesday following a tour of the facility with business stakeholders in the parish. Work is far advanced at the Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James, but the Taipei Health facility is expected to receive an additional boost, a private wing, which is similar to the Tony Thwaites wing at the University Hospital of the West Indies. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says this is needed, especially for Western Jamaica.
It's not a difficult transition to provide a private space to support those who can afford it, and where that affordability can even subsidize some of the services that we offer here. And so I think this is the right time to talk about that.
He says it also gives visitors to the island another option outside of the public health system.
Millions of tourists pass through, and God forbid any of them need this service. We will be available, but also the private space could offer an alternative option, another option. And then thirdly, it's a training institution. So the capacity to train is also a big thing. So for all of those reasons, I think we're at a stage though where we can discuss those issues and come to some agreement.
Businessman and the chair of the Montego Bay-based Care for Cornwall Regional Group, Brian Jardem, says he's happy with the progress of both the Cornwall Regional and the Western Children and Adolescent Hospitals. As for plans for the private wing, he is hopeful that expertise from other regions will be looked at.
There's a lot of private medicine slash hospital providers around the world. I've seen one in the Cayman Islands, for example, the Shetty Group, that's very well done. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, we can look to invite in talent like that to carry out this sort of opportunity. You know, and maybe the business sector may see it as a partnership opportunity as well.
In the meantime, the health minister says the facility should be completed in the next 24 to 30 months. However, there will be phased reoccupation of the new building by mid-year 2024.
The intention is to complete 3 or 4 areas in the Cornwall building next year, and then we continue to build out over the next year after that to complete totally. So yes, it's a phased occupation, and the reason for that is that we can prioritize some of the areas that won't suffer from infection prevention and control issues given the construction that is taking place, and then we go into the more delicate areas in the final phase, operating theaters and so on.
Meanwhile, Dr. Tufton is this afternoon decrying the behavior of the pranksters at the reopening of the Hero Circle Eatery Crab Circle last Thursday. The men, Kazray Gray and another only identified as Chuck Star, posed as public inspectors at the ceremony and gave interviews to the media and also spoke on the platform at the event. Addressing the issue on Tuesday, the health minister said such an act undermines the safety of the public, especially when it comes to food.
I think it's important for us to take the strongest possible action so that a signal is sent that this is not something that will be tolerated. When a public health inspector goes to an establishment and presents their identification, they should be respected as a representation of the authority of the state acting on behalf of the people of Jamaica so that they can be confident that when they go into a food establishment, they feel safe. To engage, to manipulate that process and create an impression that is false is to undermine that process.
Now, under the Profession Supplementary to Medicine CPSM Act, persons who impersonate a government official can be fined up to $250,000 for a first offense. For using a fake ID to deceive, the guilty party may be fined $500,000 or 6 months in prison. A town choked by vending. That description from councillors of the St. Ann Municipal Corporation regarding Ocho-Rios. At the corporation's recent meeting, Chairman Sidney Stewart announced that 3 roads in Ocho-Rios will be declared no vending zones. These are Newland Street, Da Costa Drive and Turtle River Road, which leads to the cruise ship pier.
We are looking now to see how we can approach Ocho-Rios in getting rid of the anti-vending situation without creating any great confusion. So we are having dialogue. So we walk Ocho-Rios with all the teams and we had some consultation with the vendors along those roadways. And we are at a point now where we are trying to relocate these vendors. And of course, surprisingly, the vendors are accepting it. We are looking at putting some of them, relocating some of them into the Ocho-Rios market or other areas based on what they are selling. Food and vegetables certainly will be going back into the market.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Several farmers in Western St. Thomas are calling on the government to do something about a river in their community, which they say poses a significant threat to farm irrigation. The farmers told TVJ News that they have suffered tremendous losses on several occasions due to the river overflowing its banks during heavy rainfall. Details in this report.
Millions of dollars in crops washed away.
I lose around 18 East Indian mango tree. Water on my farm gone. This river is a threat to artists, the whole entire village. Onion farmer, we have a serious problem. You know, I see everything from right, but if you look down straight down now, at the whole of the land, them tear off the right down now, brother. The mango tree them in the river course.
The farmers have been lamenting for several weeks, but their issues were amplified after the recent flood. To make matters worse, their crops aren't the only things at risk of being washed away. Also in danger is an irrigation pump that many of them depend on. The pump is located near a river that is oftentimes in spate during torrential rainfall.
See the pump house there right there, so. And the next moment, when it come again, the pump house gone. And if the pump house gone, RT is gone. Below RT is gone. We don't need to show up the two sides of the river. Just show up the two sides of the bank. So at the end of the day, for the time being, the water can just go down in our channel and just go straight down general.
Councillor for the Landway Division, Edwin Marr, is calling on authorities to intervene.
We are calling on the Ministry of Agriculture and RADA to have take an immediate look on that pump with a view to have some sort of remedial work done to protect it.
But that is not all he wants RADA to give attention to.
Predatory larceny is something that is threatening the lives and even the property of the farmers. They lament this like every day. And also we are calling on RADA to be a part of the solution in terms of like the police, the predatory larceny unit to be involved in a more consultative way.
Ramarda Lyons, TVJ News.
And it's now time for the Business Minute.
The Tourism Ministry says there will be several new non-stop flights to the country beginning next month. Among them, flights between London, UK and Montego Bay by new European airline North Atlantic Airways starting December 1. There will also be non-stop flights between Toronto, Canada and Montego Bay by Canadian airline Jetlines starting December 9, and non-stop flights between Toronto, Canada and Kingston by Canadian airline Flair starting December 16. Senior strategist in the Tourism Ministry, Delano Stevewright, noted that these new flights are coming in addition to new flights launched over the last several weeks, including Southwest Airlines and United Airlines to Montego Bay. In international business, a federal judge has paved the way for the government to propose new restrictions on how Facebook and Instagram's parent company, Meta, can use personal data. The decision allows the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, to ban the social media giant from profiting off data it collects from users under the age of 18. The FTC has also suggested implementing tougher rules on Meta's use of facial recognition technology. This ruling could force Meta to halt the rollout of new products or services pending a compliance audit. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Herman Green.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In this evening's health report, we look at pancreatic cancer.
So we are seeing quite a few patients presenting late. However, we can still have good outcomes where people seek intervention right away. Earlier this year, I had a patient who was feeling well just for maybe about 2-3 weeks, and she did the scan, and the tumor was already more than 2 centimeters. But you really have to be vigilant. You really have to, if you find that you're not feeling well and that feeling is persisting more than a few days, you should go to your doctor and let them know, hey, these are the things I'm having.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Monitor and maintain a healthy weight. Eat small, frequent meals. Consider the use of liquid supplements or shakes. Choose foods that are easy to digest. And choose colorful foods.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, a new report is warning that several Caribbean countries without shoreline defenses could permanently lose 5% or more of their cities to sea level rises by the end of the century. New hyperlocal data released by Human Climate Horizons, a collaboration between the United Nations Development Programme and the Climate Impact Lab, notes that the extent of coastal flooding has increased over the past 20 years as a result of sea level rise. On the international scene, Several schools have been ordered closed and flights disrupted in the United States as a lake-effect snowstorm wallops several states. Residents in sections of New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio are dealing with whiteout conditions. This storm held steady overnight with snowfall rates over 1 inch per hour, as meteorologists warned that winds of about 35 miles per hour could produce blowing and drifting snow. And at least one person is dead after a U.S. military Osprey aircraft crashed off the coast of a Japanese island today. A total of 6 people were believed to be on board. Up to news time, officials had not confirmed the conditions of the other occupants or the cause of the crash. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your Midday Sports Report.